And it's live. We promised the people Bugglebots.
We promised the people Bugglebots, so we're going to start with Battlebots instead. This show comes to you in 3 parts: Battlebots, Bugglebots, and SpaceX. Enjoy.
Guess which one is the longest. We finally have the unaired Battlebots fights that we could have had 2 months ago if we were willing to pay a $5 for it.
I didn't know that was a thing. I would have paid a $5 for them.
I did, but I refused to do payments through Facebook.
Oh, it's okay. If that was the way it was paid for, then yeah, I wouldn't have done it either.
Yeah, I would love to be supporting them financially, but I'm not supporting Facebook financially, only with my data in very large quantities.
I'm not sure I'd want to give them my banking details, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just that way madness lies. I'm now going to find out that there was another way to do it through. Actually, even Patreon, I wouldn't want to do now. So,
well, there we go.
Anyway, I'm just justifying my cheapness here. I think it's fair to say that all of these fights, with a couple of exceptions, were cut for a reason. There were a lot of really poor fights in there. Most of them involving Predator.
Oh, poor guys.
It's funny how there were so many people during the series saying, "Oh, I really wish we'd got to see that fight." None of them were saying it after seeing them. It's like, so for example, that Predator fight against Rotator, there's a good hit in there, and that's it. There were the unaired Onsmo Destructo fights as well, where it's just robots not working.
Yeah, that's just not really entertaining.
No, and it's exactly the benefit of the format that they could cut them and it didn't affect anything whatsoever. The only 2 that I would have liked to have seen at the time, although happy to have seen them now, are Valkyrie Overhaul and Duck Gigabyte. And even Duck Gigabyte was quite short. In fact, both of them had really disappointing endings. But Valkyrie Overhaul in particular, that's some great action.
Yeah, I'm sort of sad that moment wasn't televised, really.
Are you talking the moment of Valkyrie sort of wheeling up and driving around?
I think that's quite a spectacular moment, really.
Yeah, and the beheading of Overhaul as well.
And the beheading, yeah. It is good.
And again, it's demonstrating the power of Valkyrie that I don't think always came across in their fights.
Yeah.
You know, the way it has, okay, it's not the sturdiest of assemblies on top of Overhaul, but it has taken that out as if it weren't there.
Yeah.
It has just sent that flying in half a hit. And then some beautiful gyro action as well. Then Duck Gigabyte was just Duck being Duck and doing exactly what it's meant to.
It looked a bit wobbly at the end of that, like the connection between the front sheet of metal, I don't know what to call it now.
Plough or shield, I would go with.
Okay.
But it's not a wedge.
The front wedge looked a bit looked a bit sort of shakily connected to the rest of the robot by the end of it.
I think the hinge on the left side had gone.
Yeah.
And that was giving it some trouble. It was being driven by, I feel really bad that I don't remember her name, but Hal's daughter was driving in that match. And I think Hal would maybe, as a more experienced driver, have hidden that a bit more. But when you've got a young, not necessarily hugely experienced driver trying to handle something like that, it's going to look a bit clunky.
Yeah, well, I mean, she did very well then. Like, I mean, they would pretty much always head on. There was only like one moment where I sort of thought, oh, you're exposing a wheel there. But for the most part, always head on to Gigabyte there. Did very well.
Another thing I think that fight does is demonstrate just how much more powerful than Gigabyte and a lot of other spinners Tombstone is. When you look at how Duck reacted to being hit by Tombstone versus being hit by Gigabyte, it is night and day. Tombstone was just snapping the ends of that plough off.
Yeah.
Whereas Gigabyte could barely even bend the already bent side more than it was.
Mm.
And Gigabyte is not a lightweight spinner by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know if it's an engagement thing or if it's a power thing, but there was a huge difference there.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's partly engagement because a lot of it is sloped, isn't it? So I imagine some of the force is going up rather than just sort of sinking into the other robot.
Actually, I suppose it hits lower as well, doesn't it? Because the teeth are kind of ground level.
Yeah.
In fact, thinking about it, it's borderline an undercutter. That's blown my mind a little bit. Sorry, that's distracted me. Yeah, those were the on-aired Battlebots fights. Not a huge amount there. Chomp had a couple of fights as well, where it still didn't really hit anything.
Yeah, shame.
Which is just fuel on the fire.
You're not helping.
I know. I mention these things and I regret it, and I hope I can edit around it. Well, that was a swift segment. Bugglebots.
Bugglebots.
Bugglebots. There have been so many interesting bits of subtitling. That's the one. I was going to go closed captioning with the American way there. We've only spoken about the first episode so far, haven't we?
I believe
just
so,
the
yeah.
first one.
Yeah.
Not the best of episodes. Pretty strongly uphill since there, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. It's gotten, as they've gotten better, as they've had more successful robots on there, it's been more enjoyable to watch.
I mean, I don't know what you're getting at when you say more successful. Do you mean fewer failures? Fewer breakdowns, as it were?
Yeah, like robots that are sort of like doing what they're meant to do consistently.
I don't know if we've had more reliability as we've gone through. I think we've just had more variety and some better matchups.
Okay. Yeah, well, whatever's changed, it's like I said, it's an uphill thing.
And again, when you look at we're filming this. We're recording this just after Heat 4 has come out, so there's still Heat 5 to go, and that looks like one of the most varied groupings yet. So I think, as much as we were a bit about whether Heat 1 should have been first, it's actually got quite a nice little order to it. We're not here to go through every episode. I don't think there's really quite enough of what we like to talk about in there, but there are some specific robots that we want to highlight for a few reasons. Or should I say, there's some robots that I want to highlight. I don't know how many of these you've got anything to say on, but...
Let's find out. Should we start with Bourbon?
We shall start with Bourbon as you open up a picture because you don't know which one Bourbon is.
I know now that I've seen a picture. It's got a hexagonal drum.
Yeah, we saw this.
It's the world's first hexagonal drum.
Somewhere, Jameson Go is seething. We saw this ages ago. I can't remember what the context was, but I remember we pointed it out as a really interesting design for a drum.
If you say so.
Do you not remember this?
Nope.
We had a whole conversation with the builder on the Reddit about it and why it was hexagonal, and I was really, really excited to get to see it fight. And it lived up to my expectations. It's a good drum. It would be better if it drove upside down, but it's a good little drum.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam.
Oh dear. What are the advantages of a hex thing? I guess the main thing is it's easier to make a hexagonal drum than a correctly weighted cylindrical one.
Yeah, that seems to be the main advantage. When you think about quite a lot of drums are either a single milled piece. So think about something like the Minotaur drum with that very specific balanced shape to it, which must be an absolute nightmare to machine. I think the Concussion guys said that their drum for Series 9 had something like 20 hours of machining go into it, which is fairly cost prohibitive. Obviously, going down at this size, you would be doing less, but it's still a difficult thing to do. Quite a lot of teams, so if you think sort of Series 9 Sabertooth would be a good example of this, they'll do a cylindrical drum with things basically bolted into it, which went really well for Sabertooth in Series 9 because it shattered. That's another approach, but again, then you've got to be able to balance that up well. You've got to be able to tap that. You've got stress points that you're creating by doing it. The idea, I believe, with the hexagonal drum is that you can basically make collars that go over it with the teeth.
Yeah.
So you're not having to drill into it. You're not having to key in at all. It's just that shape retains it the way it needs to, which seems like a much simpler way of doing things. I'm fairly sure you can even get hexagonal stock just off the shelf. And then you're either water cutting or laser cutting those collars, which is a really accessible production method.
Cool.
Next up, Mini Spinny, which I really hope you don't need a picture of.
This is the little PP3D thing, right?
It is little
my guess.
PP3D.
Haha, nailed it.
A very faithful recreation of PP3D, I'd say.
Yeah, and it worked pretty well as well, I think.
Well, it worked about as well as PP3D did.
Yeah.
It failed in exactly the same ways and succeeded in exactly the same ways. Normally, I'm kind of not a massive fan of just taking an existing design and remaking it, but I really enjoyed watching this one. And I don't know why. Is it because I'm inconsistent, Sam? Is that what it is?
No, I'm laughing because you're the one that drew up the initial sketches for a split decision, which certainly seems like a familiar robot to me.
I would argue that there are very few other ways to design a Thwackbot, whereas there are many ways to design an undercutter.
This is true.
That's the argument I'll make. Whether it's a valid one, you will decide.
I think you just need to accept the fact that you have done exactly what this guy's done.
No, he's been more honest about it than I was.
This is true. This is true. Rory has been very honest.
Yeah, I was kind of backing this as a bit of a dark horse for its heat. Even though I think backing any horizontal in any heat with beetle weights is a bold move, given that there's always going to be at least one good wedge, and in his heat there was 2. Talking of wedges, Wee Woo.
Wee Woo.
What'd you make of Wee Woo?
2 very quick little wedge things. Did they start? They started fighting each other at some point, didn't they?
Yeah, after they won one of their fights,
Yeah.
they just went at each other.
Which seems like a bold move as well.
Well, I mean, you're not going to do that much damage to each other, odds are.
I know, but like, you never know. Yeah, I wouldn't have done that in personally, but
Really?
no.
I think you massively underestimate, despite the experiences you've had, the resilience of these machines. If you've got a robot that you're not willing to run into another robot a couple of times for fun, then you've got a robot that you don't have enough faith in a fight.
Yeah, that's because it's a robot that I built.
We built a very resilient robot.
Yeah, by accident.
I do feel like, bit off topic I know, but ever since we built Split Decision, this podcast has basically become a challenge to see how many times we can point out we built a robot and it was okay. And it's only downhill from here if we build another one.
I think we should try and go the whole of next episode without bringing it up.
I think that might be doable, depending on what next episode is. So yeah, really good clusterbot. I'm going to say clusterbot just because I know it annoys you.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it's the only multi-bot entry we've got in the tournament.
I'm not. Well, because they're not very common. They're not very common in heavyweight or other weight classes, are they? Particularly. I know that
few in Battlebots.
So when I sort of think about multi-bots like this, I'm not like including like a big robot plus a tiny little ant weight that's in the way just to run interference. I'm just sort of like meaning roughly 50-50 split type things. I feel like they're not all that common.
So Gemini, 4 Horsemen, the Swarm, the Grubs, admittedly 3 of those all by one team.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Would you count Escape Velocity as a proper multi-bot then?
You're going to tell me what escape velocity is.
It was the one made by the SpaceX people in Battlebots.
That one.
The flipper and the full body spinner.
Were they about even? I feel like
I don't think they were because they had an armor configuration that put the flipper up to full weight. But I feel like it might have been something like 75-25 maybe.
Yeah. That's probably the limit, really, I guess. But I don't know. Like, it's as ever, these things they're not like there's not a hard and fast rule for me because I'm not that kind of guy. You know, I like grey areas. I don't come down hard on anything. So like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not surprised this is the only one. I'm kind of surprised we have any. I would have thought that at this weight class, most people build one robot.
I think that is true, and I just don't know why that is. Presumably, challenges that I don't understand would be the answer. No, it does seem like a weight class where because you don't have to have an active weapon, I think clusters become a whole lot more viable.
Yeah.
And, potentially competitive. Especially in what is already a fairly small... Actually, it's not... I think we went through this before, but it may have been an unaired conversation. This arena, to scale to the robots, do you reckon it's bigger or smaller than, say, the Battlebots or Robot Wars arena?
I think it's smaller. I think there's less. Yeah, I think it's smaller to scale.
So it seems to me that also increases the viability of a cluster, especially in a meta where it is basically spinner versus wedge. A spinner against a decently driven cluster has next to no chance to get spun up. Although spin-up times are also a lot quicker at this weight class.
Yeah, I don't know really.
It's almost like we don't know what we're talking about.
I don't. I'm afraid I haven't. I haven't got any great deep insight for you as to why there aren't many cluster bots. But like,
I mean, there could be.
There could be more. But like,
I think a thwackbot cluster bot is exactly what's needed.
I shake my head at you.
Onwards then.
Onwards.
To Maximum Ogre Drive. Which one's that without looking?
Maximum Overdrive. Is that
Ogre Drive?
Oh, Ogre Drive. I'm sorry.
Very important.
Is that the mini saw blaze?
It is the mini saw blaze.
Nailed it. It's almost like I've watched the same program that you have.
It's almost like that's what I wrote on the notes.
We'll do the next. I won't even close this tab for the next one. I won't even look at the notes, and we'll see if I know what that is.
That's good.
Do properly. Unsurprisingly, being a mini overdrive, this is a good saw blaze. Going mad, mini saw blaze. This is a good robot.
I was so impressed by Maximum Ogre Drive. Possibly my favourite robot of the tournament so far.
I can see that. Not sure I agree, but I can see that.
Who would be your favourite of the lot then?
The Melty Brain Spinner.
Ah, fair. We'll get there. We'll get there. I just love saws. Saws are the new Crusher for me.
Are they?
You always like to say about the sort of steady brutality of Razor. And I think that robots like Sawblaze, Scorpios, Maximum Overdrive have that as well.
Mm.
Where that opponent knows that they're pinned and they know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
They know exactly the trouble they are in. And that's something that I really love as a spectator.
Yeah, I can see that. I have enjoyed watching these robots. I do enjoy the spectacle of a good sword. I especially enjoy this one because it actually does seem to cut through the armor of its opponents, unlike the heavier weight class where they're all using Hardox.
I mean, you wouldn't say that Sawblaze failed to cut through most opponents.
No, I suppose not. But like, I feel like Sawblaze is unique in the fact that it cut through stuff rather than just sort of creating a lot of spectacle.
You say unique. I can think of 3 heavyweights that have used... Well, I can think of 2 heavyweights plus another robot that use saws, and 2 of those are effective saws. So Scorpios, not as a... Hang on, no, there's Red Devil as well. I can think of 4 robots that have used saws. Red Devil has scored a good knockout with its saw against Witch Doctor. Scorpios seems to go more very heavily toothed spinner than saw, I would say.
Mm.
You've then got Sawblaze, which has been ridiculously effective at times. And then you've got Dead Metal as a house robot as well, and that saw has always really worked.
It's got a slight weight advantage.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's using basically the same kind of disc that Sawblaze was. I think if you make the right design decisions and decisions about the blade you're going to use, you can get quite far. Red Devil, I think, has struggled because I think they were using a carbide tip blade, carbide being very brittle, and therefore you need to control the pressure more than they really can.
Mm.
Whereas something like Sawblaze or Dead Metal with the friction saw, they've got a lot more leeway there. And they're not as bothered by differences in material.
Well, maybe you're right. In my head, though, saws very rarely effective. I'm glad to be wrong about this.
It is one of those designs that I think is growing in viability now that, now people have seen it working.
Mm.
Hopefully we see a few more of them and therefore a few more effective ones.
Yeah.
Because the only thing really between most designs and being effective is the right builder coming along and making them. So again, Thwackbots, the renaissance is coming. Next up, and this is going to be an easy one for you to remember, Flick.
Flick. I wonder what that is. Little drum spinner thing.
It was.
Nailed it.
Tom, builder of Bucky and Griffin, making something sensible.
What madness is this?
Naturally, it still has the experimental edge. And there's a fantastic build video on YouTube. It's about 30 minutes of almost pure CAD. Superb stuff. Where he's talking about all of the sort of unknowns that were involved in building this. And what I'm really impressed by, even though it's what completely cost him any chance of actually winning anything, is the 3D printing method that he was using.
Okay.
So it's SLS. I always want to say SSL.
That's a bit different.
Is that a computer thing?
SSL, yeah. Secure socket layer, I think. It's an encryption thing. You know HTTPS?
Yes.
I think the S is like the SSL bit of that.
Ah, okay. So it's an abbreviation of or an acronym of an acronym of an acronym. It's one of those things.
Yes, SSL is different. It's not a 3D. Well, it might be a 3D printing technology, but in the context that I know it in, it's not. It's like an encryption thing.
So this is basically laser sintering of plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And my knowledge of this only comes from the video that he made. So if I'm wrong, it's because he was wrong, Although we do know someone that works with all this stuff and could get information that way. The idea is basically that in normal 3D printing, you're limited in what you can print because of the need for support material and things like that. Whereas with laser sintering, because it's a layer of powder being laid down and then cured, you've basically got the unused powder in there as a support layer, which means you can do basically any shape. And when it's made, everything else just falls away, and therefore you've still got the material there with no unwanted support material. That's my understanding. If that's wrong, then I want to know that it's wrong.
Struggling to see how you could do some extreme overhangs with that.
Why not?
I feel like layers of powder is going to become a small pile of stuff, which doesn't make a very good support structure, does it? I don't know this technology, so
I may not either. It's fine.
I feel like we should not talk about 3D printing technologies, especially ones that we have literally got no experience with.
But whatever it was clearly a very good idea until the material turned out to be useless. That's my high-level analysis of Flick, the drum that broke.
Well, there we go.
But no, some other really nice bits of design. For example, the way his side armor was attached is absolutely superb. It kind of jigsaws in and is then bolted. Just so many lovely, lovely touches in the way that it's made. And I think, especially with the considerations we're trying to make with Split Decision 2 and watching the way that he's dealt with the wiring and things like that, so much to learn from that video.
Yeah.
I wasn't impressed by the robot at the time. It was a 4-wheel drive drum spinner. Yeah, it's not the rarest idea, but having seen the work's gone in behind it, super impressed. And I'm sure there are so many other robots that if we saw the work that went in behind them, we'd be more impressed by them.
I suspect that's going to be true of every robot ever.
Right, tell us about SCD, Sam.
SCD, Melty Brain Spinner. It's just exciting, don't you think? I like Melty Brains. Now that I've sort of seen what it is, I like the sort of the technology there. When you first told me about Melty Brains, I thought it was a bit ridiculous and I didn't really see the point. And I still think it is a bit ridiculous, but like I do like it. Don't know why.
Just love the idea that Nuts 2 swayed you.
I really like
There's
nuts.
hope for Jellyfish yet.
I really like Nuts too. There's no hope for Jellyfish. I don't think.
The linear clamp.
No.
All it needs is for the right builder to come along, Sam. Any design can be viable.
I'm not sure I agree with you.
No, I'm so with you on SCD. I didn't really give it a hope, given that it was going to be up against some very big wedges.
I don't think the driver did either.
I will say it does highlight the downside of Melty Brains, which is that the very slow translation doesn't always make for the best entertaining fights.
Mm.
You're waiting and waiting and waiting for the hits, but when they come, they are big hits.
Yeah. I wonder what the, like, I suspect that there are like two modes. It's like I would guess it's like a mode switch somewhere for if you're doing like normal driving or Melty Brains driving. I would have thought. So obviously, like there was a moment in one of his fights where he's like on the pit, and then the pit release button gets hit and stuff, and you're sort of thinking, oh, move, or like you sort of like you're on the pit, they're clearly going to go towards the button, you need to get off it, and you're sort of thinking like it must be quite an. It's either. I don't know. It's just sort of like you almost need to you need to stop spinning, drive away from it, and then spin up again. But I imagine that's like a couple of quite potentially fiddly to do.
Yeah, it looks like it must be quite an ordeal, or else I think there'd be a lot of times where you're up against an essentially a mobile opponent, where you would want, rather than translating across the whole arena, to stop, drive a bit closer, and then get spun up again.
Yeah.
I did notice as well, I don't know, I may be right or wrong on this, but I got the impression that it, and I presume most Melty Brains, do suffer as soon as there's any imperfection on the floor. Because that point when it was on the edge of the pit, it seemed like he couldn't translate off of there.
Because it's doing such small adjustments to what the wheels are doing, I imagine it does need there to be a very, very consistent surface for that to work. I think as soon as you've got slopes and bumps and stuff, I think the movements that should make it the adjustments to the wheel speed that should make it move in theory maybe don't do what you want or expect, or maybe they do nothing.
I think as well there's a certain amount of... Obviously, there's an input involved with it of some kind in terms of presumably accelerometers.
Mm.
I don't know how sensitive they are to any instability.
I bet they drift over time, and I bet they drift quite quickly, actually.
What do you mean by drift? Sorry.
So my understanding of the way Melty Brains works is that the robot has like a sense of what is forward. It's got to pick a direction that it's just going to consider forwards or north or whatever. And then as it's spinning, it's using the accelerometer to know every time one point on the circumference of that robot passes that point. And my suspicion is that its understanding of what way forwards is drifts over time. I don't think that's going to be perfectly steady. Even when it's just sat on the spot, not moving in any way and on a perfect surface, I still think it would drift a bit because, these things are not perfect. And I suspect that as it moves, and especially when it takes hits and stuff, I suspect that drifts or moves, gets completely reset and all kinds of stuff. So I would think that it's not a consistent sense of which way's forwards on there at all.
That makes sense. I was thinking more about the impact of jolting over a seam in the floor.
Yeah.
The sort of noise that would create in the data that's coming in.
Yeah,
As more of a short-term problem, but I would imagine that is also an issue as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that noise and all that kind of stuff has an impact on it as well, because it's very very tight timing, especially at the speeds those things are spinning at. Very tight timing on when it's got to do stuff, and yeah, if it's temporarily or over a long period getting more and more wrong about which way forwards is, then it's gonna drift. But still far more effective than I sort of like thought it could be. Like I said, the first time you ever explained this to me, I was like, "There's no way that can work," and here we are.
I was also a little bit dubious about, even though I know it's been done more than the alternative approach, I was dubious about the solid teeth at first. Because obviously Nuts 2 was the melty brain that most people will know. A lot of its effectiveness was based on the fact it was a big, long flail. So I was really pleased to sort of see an example of a toothed version working. I know there are other examples out there, they're just not ones I've really come across before.
Yeah.
There were a few that we wanted to talk about for slightly less glowing reasons, if we're going to be honest. Some that were maybe victims of the tight build schedule. Hard Knocks stood out as the axe that can't self-right.
That doesn't sort of like bode well for the power of the weapon if it can't right itself.
No. And it's a shame because I love axes and I really, really liked the look of it.
Yeah.
I like the sort of big, brutal, hand-cut axe and was really excited to see that come down on something. But I know he had some weapon motor issues and didn't really get to use it at all. I'm not sure, however, if the not being able to self-right was just a lack of power thing. You could understand it maybe getting stuck at a bad angle, but when it was face down on the axe, I was definitely expecting that to come back over.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Tell you what, though, wonderful Bristolian accent. Which is what we really needed in Bugglebots. Then we had Dr. Thwackenstein.
A.K.A. Split Decision Mark 2.
No. A.K.A. Dr. Einstein. Due to a lack of thwacking.
Yeah.
I was so excited to see a thwackbot.
Yeah.
And I really, really felt for the builder with it just not getting a chance to show how hard it could hit.
Yeah, it is a shame. Like if you can't demonstrate the purpose of your robot at any point in a competition, it's a shame. It's sort of like it's almost made worse by the format here in that it's not just like one fight and you're out. It's sort of like you've got several opportunities to try and demonstrate it. It's just it's a shame. And
to go down twice by different means as well. That's got to hurt a bit.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, when I look at the design of it, I do wonder how able it is to actually get that hammer over, because it looks like a lot of weight a long way from the axle. Yeah,
it's a lot of weight a long way away and comparatively small wheels.
It looks like it would sit and spin really well, but I do wonder. I imagine with a good enough run up, it would be able to get that over. But I do feel it may have struggled in the arena. I don't know how much testing they were able to do on it to see whether it could.
Yeah.
But if it came over, it was going to do some damage, because that was a big old chunk of hard hocks.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's two that definitely it was a shame not to see more from. Apex BW, however, we did get to see win a fight.
Yes.
Which, by Apex standards, is pretty good going.
Yes. Well done them.
The disappointment here is that it didn't self-destruct at any point.
No, that bolt all the way through the robot or whatever. It's proved to be too effective.
Nerf Apex, that's what I say.
Oh, no, you need to let it loose. Let it destroy more arenas and endanger the audience.
Yes, the audience were in a lot of danger as almost all of the arena was taken down. The most important part was destroyed. The rest of the arena was left hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
The thing I actually enjoyed with Apex most was the nature of one of their failures, with the belt tensioner just melting itself. I just love when you get such an unexpected problem caused by your own massive power.
Yeah. It is astonishing how hot all those things get, really. I always underestimate how intense combat robotics is. Always. I always sort of think, oh yeah, it's quite intense, but off-the-shelf parts surely can do it, especially at this level. But it's always more intense than that. It's kind of amazing.
It's interesting to me as well that you've always been the person who says you should know what your components are capable of in terms of the electronics. But that is something that would be so hard to see coming.
Yeah, I would never have seen that. And we touched on it as well when we talked about Battlebots robot that is on the tip of my tongue. Had to completely rebuild
We've spoken about literally all of them.
Yeah.
Describe it to me.
It's the spooky one.
The spooky
one.
Witch Doctor?
Witch Doctor. That is just completely... It's spooky. You can't laugh at my description because you got it on your first attempt.
I mean, I'm not saying it's an ineffective description.
Therefore, it is 100... Anyway, my point is...
I mean, we've got a title now, so that's fine by me.
We spoke... When we were speaking about... Because they had issues with their motors that were burning out. And they had... in theory, they could do however many amps it was. And they ran it on a third of that and they still burned out and stuff. So we have spoken before that, like, while my armchair engineering... Oh, you should know how much power your components can take. It's clearly very hard to know what can do. And yeah, I certainly wouldn't have predicted that the motor would get hot enough to melt a belt.
The other, shall we say, is this a predictable failure? I feel like this is a predictable failure that a lot of robots have had, is links coming out. And I think this is where I've seen the worst of the armchair engineering. With so many people complaining about the fact that links are a rule and going, oh, all these links coming out, it's ruining fights. And while I don't disagree that it's very frustrating when a robot's link comes out, look at all the robots that never have a link come out. It's not luck. It is clearly something that you can design around. And again, we've had the experience of a switch being an afterthought, but it seems that there have been a lot of robots where it does seem like the switch was a bit of an afterthought, where it's hanging out of a little cubby hole.
Yeah.
Whereas other robots that have clearly protected it seem to be absolutely fine with it.
Yeah, I imagine it's like an experience thing because, our afterthought switch did get hit by an opponent, and our robot was it was turned off in an arena. So like, if you don't think about it, even the most I sort of thought, oh, that could happen, but no way someone's gonna hit because it's on the bottom of the robot. No way he's gonna hit that properly. But
the bottom, aka the front.
Yeah, but it happened. And yeah, so I think it's probably just mainly an experience thing where if this is like the first or second build that you've done, you haven't necessarily sort of thought through all those fine details, and you sort of gone, much like we did. Oh man, we need a way of turning this off safely that doesn't involve taking a panel off and unplugging the battery. It's sort of you sort of put it on there wherever it kind of fits. So you end up with a few robots that had like removable links kind of hanging out and stuff, where it's like that's possibly going to get ripped out or whatever. It's just sort of an experience thing, I think, more than anything.
Again, I'm kind of harking back to it, but part of the build video for Flick showed off just how much thought had gone into that removable link, where it was obviously embedded in the body and then had a panel over it that had its own channel through which it opened and closed, sort of printed into the body of the machine.
Yeah.
That is probably the most attention I've seen paid to it. Although, again, I remember reading the Hobgoblin build diary, and obviously Hobgoblin wasn't a robot that really performed, but when you look at it, again, it was planned for really well.
Yeah.
It was in a sensible area of the robot that was both accessible to hands and unlikely to be hit by opponents.
Yeah. Removable links are hard. I think they are important though, because I think if we didn't have them, I think the sport would die pretty quickly. I imagine. I don't know. It would be very different, I think, if there were more injuries.
Oh yeah.
And problems. Like I think
But then again, it is interesting to watch Battlebots, where they just use switches. Everyone seems fairly happy with it. And it is quite interesting to be watching a fight, watch a robot die unexpectedly, and not immediately be going, "Oh, the link probably came out." Which is a thought that I have quite a lot. I realise a lot of viewers probably aren't thinking about those kinds of things, but...
Yeah, it's not necessarily a removable link. I think it's important that there is I think it's very important that there is a safe way to turn the robot off easily.
Oh yeah, the question I was going to ask you, in terms of safety, because I think part of the thing is people are going, they're only 1.5 kilo, do they really need it? Do you think it's necessary for robots without an active weapon at this weight class?
I don't think it's as necessary, but I think you should enforce it anyway.
See, I kind of wonder if... And again, I'm saying this as someone that hasn't had to deal with the safety aspect very much, so maybe this is an ignorant viewpoint. But it does seem to me that you could very easily write into the rules that only robots at this weight class with active weapons need a link and others can have a switch.
Why? Because that would be an advantage to the wedges or the weaponless
That was going to be my
robots.
one argument against it.
And it's sort of like, I feel like weaponless wedges don't need any more advantages than they already have. I just think it's one of those things just levels it. It's sort of like, here are a bunch of safety requirements, one of which is you need a removable link. And I think having it just, boom, done. Because like, so when you sort of say like a weaponless robot or one without an active weapon, you sort of immediately think of like fairly blunt wedges and stuff. But you could conceivably have, you know, robots with sharp pointy bits on them that aren't active in any way. But you wouldn't want that even, you know, you wouldn't want that driving it. You're trying to sort of like reach your hand in to pick up your robot and then it suddenly, I don't know, you just want a way to be able to turn it off easily. And like, I think having a link that you can just sort of grab from above or I don't know, like I just think.
The reason I say it is that at this weight class, taking out a link is often going to be a two-handed process.
Yeah.
In a heavyweight, you grab that link and pull, the robot stays where it is, the link comes out.
Yeah.
At this weight class, I can easily see a link being solid enough that you pull it and the whole thing comes with it. So in a sense, for certain designs, a physical switch could be safer because that is then a one-handed process.
Yeah.
That's my only real active benefit of it. Part of it is also just thinking, simplify things a little. Although I can also see why making people work harder on safety is a potentially necessary barrier to entry.
Yeah, I think as I was talking there, I'm sort of convincing myself against having removable links specifically. But I think my overwhelming feeling here is that whatever safety rules you have here need to be consistent across all robots. I don't think it's reasonable to go, oh, you haven't got an active weapon, therefore you have different requirements for these things. I think it's sort of like we have like a baseline. If you're entering a robot, these are the base safety rules you have to do, and then there obviously are going to be special cases for certain, like, you know, spinners under a certain speed, under a certain energy, all that kind of stuff. Like, there are always going to be little things aimed at specific weapons, but I think there's like a baseline set of rules for what the robot needs to, you know, be, and I think you just need to make that consistent across everything.
Yeah, in competitive terms, I can definitely see that. But again, I do wonder if in safety terms there are... I don't think that a link is necessarily the best solution to safety. No. Although, again, the other thing you have with the link is that you can very easily look at someone and see if they've got their link in their hand, which you can't do with the Switch.
Yeah.
Lots either way, not really the best person to be speaking with any authority on it, but it's a question I would like to open to more people.
Yeah.
We have one final bit of Bugglebots. We've just courted some controversy. Should we court some more?
We might ruin the sport.
We'll kill the sport.
I'll kill the...
You ruined the joke, that's for sure.
I killed the joke. God damn it.
Now...
There's a D2 kit in this tournament. Yeah. Is where we're going.
I didn't want to introduce it by name, which is really weird. I didn't want to go. Captain... You know, it is... I think kitbots in general are a discussion.
Yeah.
And I don't know where to go with this discussion.
I don't know.
It's tricky.
I think we need to be very clear. We're not framing this against Captain Doom.
Oh, not at all.
In any way.
Not at all.
Like, it is a perfectly valid thing to do. It is what it is, you know. So I've got no problem with that team or the robot that they have. It's just an interesting thing about kitbots in general.
Really good for accessibility in the sport. But it'd be really nice if they weren't as good as they are. Can someone please make a kitbot that isn't as good as a D2?
Yeah.
Can someone make a kitbot that is more likely to lose? Because, you know, obviously, in Bugglebots we have one D2. It's a D2 that has been heavily modified and is driven by the most incredible driver. You know, this isn't a D2 winning, this is a D2 winning with its driver.
Mm.
But I know that in America you often have situations where there are multiple of these in a tournament.
Yeah.
And people are starting to build specifically to have a chance of beating D2s. People are coming up to tournaments with specific anti-D2 setups.
I think one of the interesting things about kitbots is that, and I guess I should sort of talking about kitbots as in like a generic term. I feel like there's a specific brand that is kitbot, isn't it? Or botkit or...
botkit. Yeah,
kitbot.
There's a third potentially as well.
Anyway.
I've never looked into them that thoroughly, no. I must admit.
Anyway, robots that you just buy as a kit anyway. I think because they're sort of like meant to be quite accessible, that sort of inherently means they're going to be quite a simple design. And what is a simple design? Box, 4 wheels, wedge on the front. What is a really effective robot design? Box, 4 wheels, wedge on the front. So it's sort of like it's not in any way surprising that they are very effective. And I guess the other thing is that because they're sort of like, they can, you don't because they're a kit that you buy, you're getting access to materials and like machining methods that you might not otherwise get access to. So it can sort of be a bit of an imbalance there, maybe.
And I think they're also designed to be things that don't break too easily, not to be competitive, but to be financially viable for someone that buys one.
Yeah.
You don't want someone to have the experience of buying their new toy to get into a sport they want to get into and coming back with it completely broken the first time. So, big old metal wedge, for that goal, very useful.
Yeah.
But the competitiveness is an issue.
Yeah. I don't know what you could do about that, though.
Make them less good.
Well, you can't. You can't go to all the people that making robot kits and be like, "Yo, make that less competitive, please."
But the danger is that competitions will start banning them.
I don't
think this is a discussion that competitions are having, but to me, it seems like the natural step when something becomes too dominant is that you create rules against it.
How are you going to ban kits though? Because like
it'll be specific kits that got banned.
Well, which seems a bit unfair to me for one.
Entirely, yeah.
And you just mentioned that this D2 Captain Doom is heavily modified. I don't know the extent of their modifications, but it's sort of like at what point, is it different enough from a standard D2? Is the question.
Ship of Theseus time here.
Yeah, like at what point do you go, oh, okay, you built that yourself, or it's different enough? Like, let's say that I built a D2, but without buying a D2. Would I be allowed to enter that? It's not actually a D2. It's just reverse engineered.
It's an R2.
It just looks like a D2.
Wow, this is immediately getting a bit Philip K. Dick. If it looks like the real thing and acts like the real thing, is it essentially the real thing?
Yeah.
It's a good question. Again, I'm bringing this up as something that I don't want to happen, so I haven't thought about how it would actually work.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't want kits to be banned. And I wouldn't want specific kits to be banned because that just seems a bit vindictive almost. Maybe vindictive isn't quite the word. I can't quite think of the exact right word for it, but it feels a bit something that it's not good.
I mean, in business terms, it's kind of anti-competitive.
Yeah, yeah.
And obviously, for a tournament like Bugglebots, it's fine because they have a selection process. But where you've got open tournaments, the idea of having... Again, you say about what if you build your own that is basically a D2. It's annoying enough having Battlebots where 4 or 5 very similar verticals turn up. But that is very different to having 4 or 5 of the exact same robot turn up.
Yeah. I have another thought that's just occurred to me. It's just like, who are the rules for? Like, we're complaining about having 3 or 4 D2s being boring for us, the viewers, right? But I suspect that even if you're driving against, you've got a D2 and you're driving against a D2, I suspect that certainly has the potential for the people involved of being quite an interesting fight, because that's quite an interesting leveler, where it's not a battle of like who's got the better robot. It becomes who's a better driver, who's the better tactician here.
This is Formula E versus Formula 1 at this point. Is it about the man or the machine?
Yeah.
To me, first of all, I often really enjoy wedge versus wedge fights. I have no problem watching a wedge take on a wedge. So for me as a supporter, for me as a spectator, the spectacle of 2 similar robots isn't a problem. For me, I will always want variety. I want to be looking at something and playing the rock, paper, scissors game in my head. And I'm doing that as much as a spectator as I am a potential competitor. If I'm going to build something, first of all, I want to have built it, but I understand why other people would go down a different road. But I want to test myself against a range of different approaches. And if I went to a tournament that was double elimination and went out to the same robot twice, I would feel a bit hard done by. I feel like I haven't had the chance to test myself that I wanted. And the thing is, they're great for accessibility. The idea that you can go out and buy a thing that you could win a fight with is really valuable. Until too many people are doing it.
I don't know, I can sort of like... I feel like I could go multiple ways on this. Because it's sort of like... If it feels like, there's one... For me, anyway, there's like one set of desires I have from someone that watches it. But then there's, I think, a different set of desires for getting into it. I think I've had a lot of fun building and taking part in this, but I would not be at all surprised. Obviously, I suspect there are many people that get more enjoyment out of building the thing than they do about fighting the thing, and I fully imagine there are people who go the other way as well, who will get much more enjoyment out of the competing aspect of the thing and don't really get a lot out of building it. And at the very extreme end of that, I suspect there are people that really would rather not build things, you know, who just sort of like, this is just a chore to build it so that they can do the fun bit, which is you know, the fighting bit of it. And I think having kits is good to broaden it and keep it that way. And I wouldn't want to exclude those people from too many things. I can sort of understand wanting to be like, we should think about these kits a bit for televised or YouTubeized, I don't know how you say that, but you know what I mean, like broadcast. Sort of things. But then, you know, I feel that you're going with this different set of things for, you know, what we sort of refer to as the live circuit and stuff, but just these unbroadcast events that you just sort of go to. I think it's very valid to have kits there, and I think even if you've got I don't know, I think there's a lot to be said for just the process of driving and competing and all the tactics involved and all that kind of stuff, and like how would you approach fighting exactly the same robot, or if you've got your own robot that you built, how do you approach dealing with the various kits and stuff?
One thing that I would like to know more about is who is buying them. Because I imagine it being the parent of the child that wants to do Battlebots, who has no technical know-how of their own. You know, this is completely out of their sphere of experience. And they want to help that person get into it, and this is the most accessible way for them. It is the way that, for them, is also the safest. Yeah. You know, they don't want to be, you know, using power tools for the first time with little Jimmy next to them. This is a fantastic tool for them to allow their child to explore a new hobby, potentially gain a bunch of new skills that we really want them to get as well, and potentially go really far with it. That's the sort of use case that I really want to preserve. What I kind of don't want, or what I wouldn't want, is for us to have bought one. People who... I mean, obviously we have a certain degree of skill and knowledge already. I do worry that the process of just buying your first robot robs you of a learning experience as an adult.
Yeah.
So I'd want to know who it is that's buying them and using them. If it's mostly kids, then I can completely see that. But I do question why an adult would use one. And that's harsher than I want it to be in a way. But I just don't quite understand the thought process of someone that wouldn't want to build it themselves. Because it's so far away from how I view it.
I think I'd use one. I'd buy one and build one, maybe.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think I'm that averse to it, really. Because like I said, I really enjoyed the fighting aspect of it. I enjoyed driving a robot in the arena and trying to do it. And like, I would like to do that with a competitive robot.
But you're so able to build one.
I think I am and I'm not. And that's going to get potentially a bit touchy-feely to go down there. But like, I can see... for me, that like I might decide, you know what, I wouldn't do it for everything. I wouldn't be like, I'm only going to buy robots. I think, you know, because I think there's a lot of fun for me in building them as well. But I almost also sort of think, actually, I would rather buy a kit and compete with that than be blocked on not being able to build a robot that's competitive enough for what I want to be able to do. You know, I'd rather if I got to a point where it was like, I cannot build, for whatever reason, cannot build a robot that's competitive enough to win something, that might be when I go, right, I'm going to buy a kit, because I want to see how far I can get through a tournament. I want to sort of have a robot that is competent enough where I could take on various opponents and stuff. Because I'm a competitive person, and because I like, you know, want to, you know, there's a part of me that would want to take it seriously and sort of have a proper robot and stuff.
How dare you!
And all that. So like, I'm not saying I'm going to go out and buy a DT, but I have looked into them. I have looked into, you know, how much they cost and all that kind of thing, like $150 or something. Like, they're not too bad, really. And I think that's right, off the top of my head. Anyway, so I have looked into them and stuff, and I sort of think, and it would be fun. Like, I think, you know, driving them around and competing them, I think, is a lot of fun, and I could see myself doing it.
I'm surprised, but I shouldn't be, because I know that competitiveness means a lot more to you than it does to me. And I'm really glad that you're here with the alternative opinion to mine. I think it would be... It's good that you're here to challenge me on this, put it that way. But I have so many questions. It's just so alien to me that you could feel... This is really hard to balance without being harsh.
Do it. Be harsh. We're among friends.
I could not feel a sense of achievement winning with something I didn't make. That's my very individual position on it.
it would be less of a thing. Like, I would be less proud having won with a kit. But then I also think a lot of winning comes down to things that are beyond building it. I think a lot of it does come down to driving and the draw and your sort of tactics and all that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot more outside of it that would still be me. It's not as if I'm, the logical extreme of that would be to buy a kit and then pay someone else to drive it. Like, I think that's the extent I'd have to go to feel like what you've just described, where it would feel like a really hollow achievement. But like,
you're a team manager at that point.
Yeah, it's not the same. But I agree though. Like, if I built a robot and won with it, that would be more of an achievement. I'd feel better about that.
Do you feel that, and this is getting so hypothetical to the point of almost not being worthwhile, do you feel that if you did buy something and achieve a win with it, would that be the point where you went, okay, now I've got to win with something I made?
Yeah, that would be the next
step. Is
step.
this like climbing a ladder to true success?
Yeah, that would be
self-actualization.
That would be the next logical step. That would be like the galaxy brain of that meme. Or would it be...
That's in the show notes now, that is.
Or would it be the tiny brain? Which way around would these things go?
I mean, we'll both make a version and decide. How does that sound?
I have a feeling that tiny brain would be winning with a robot that you built, and then galaxy brain would be a D2. Specifically a D2.
I was going to say, it is a shame that we've spoken about... We wanted to speak about kits in general, but we just said D2 so much.
Yeah.
Other kits are available. Don't buy any of them. No, that's not what I mean. But yeah, that is a large number of statements I may regret. Suffice to say, I won't be buying a kit. I'll be building stupider robots.
Yep.
If I ever become competitive, please slap me.
With pleasure.
Any more on Bugglebots, beetle weights in general, capitalism?
So these are the means of production. I think we're done. Speaking of capitalism, SpaceX.
Oh yes. Continue.
If you only listen to this for robots, then goodbye.
I love how our closing notes on robots is Ryan is a miser. Ryan is a roboteering elitist.
Yep.
Continue.
It's been a while since we've spoken about SpaceX. They've been very busy. And they've done a lot of stuff since I think we last spoke about it. So if memory serves, the last time we spoke about SpaceX on this show at least was just before Block 5 was a thing. And,
it's been a very long time. And
Block 5 is now a thing. It's their latest iteration of the Falcon 9. It has flown a number of times now, and they've demonstrated it's more reusable than the old ones. So they have now finally flown a booster 3 times rather than just 2. I don't know how many more flights that booster's going to do. It's not, as far as I'm aware, not been decommissioned yet. Like, it's still a thing that exists. So it may well get a 4th flight. I believe it's had 2 quite intense flights as well. There's like easier launches to do that are like lower energy, lower orbits, all that kind of stuff. And and I think this booster has done 2 launches successively that were like right on the limit of what it can do in terms of landing, I believe.
So it's also done 2 different styles of landing, hasn't it?
Yeah,
so it's done 2 drone ships and 1 return to base, as it were.
Yes.
And I'm guessing that a return to base is more difficult purely because of the distance involved.
They do the return to launch site when it's an easier launch.
Oh, okay, that makes sense because they're going to have the fuel remaining to do it.
Yeah, exactly. They've got the fuel where they can actually come back. So when they're landing on the barge, there's like the boost back burn, which is in the barge things is basically just killing its momentum. It's just slowing it down enough that re-entry isn't going to kill it. And then it lands quite a long way down range. Whereas the boost back for the easier ones, they've got so much more fuel, they can just literally they bring it back. They stop it, and then it comes, and then it starts coming back towards the thing, and they can land it on land.
Yeah, to give a sort of visual idea of this, the drone ship landing is like throwing a ball into a bin on the other side of the room.
Yeah.
Whereas the one at base is like throwing a boomerang and catching it.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it works.
I'll go with that. I mean, it's completely different, but I'll go with that.
Okay, then. It's like throwing a disc at a very specific angle so that it comes back to you.
Oh, dear.
Killed that, sorry.
What else is that with Block 9? Block 5. It has failed. They have a landing failure. I don't know if you saw this.
It was a landing abort, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, so in one landing, a grid fin jammed up, and so it didn't have enough control to do a precise landing, and it was just rolling the whole way down, spinning as it came down. And it still had enough control that it didn't hit any land or anything. So the way these things land is they target away from the landing site until the very last second. Basically, it's really late that they actually sort of translate it over to where the landing site is meant to be. So this was coming down, and it didn't have enough control to bring itself over. So it slowed itself down and did just a soft touchdown on the water, but it was spinning, so it couldn't land safely. So they've demonstrated that even in these situations, their rockets still have enough control over what they're doing that it's not going to hit anyone. And
it's also come in for a fairly soft touchdown.
Yeah, it's
the damage really has come from the fact that once it's in the water, it's gonna fall over.
Yeah, and it didn't. What's interesting about this? So they've had other ones where it's hit the water and then fallen over. I think they've had this happened once before where it's done that and then it's sort of been fine. The first time this happened, it hit the water, fell over, but it sort of didn't. It couldn't do any of its make safe procedures at the end, so they had to detonate it. They couldn't recover that booster. They had to because it was still like pressurized and still had like rocket fuel in it and stuff.
How is that environmentally? It's not really a good thing.
I mean, there's a
Probably
lot.
Shouldn't be doing.
There's a lot of space stuff that's just at the bottom of oceans. It's pretty bad, really. So there's that. Whereas this one, it landed softly enough, and it could make itself safe. It vented itself, depressurized, and it was sort of like softly landed. So they could go out and tug it back in. I don't know what they've done with it or anything, but
from what I've read, just from the stuff you sent me in preparation for this, I believe they're working out whether it's recoverable, whether it's reusable.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're working on other stuff, so it's kind of just hidden away in storage somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just threw a tarp over it.
Yeah, pretty much. It'll be somewhere. Interesting sort of things came out about the way that its sort of computers work. Like it knows where buildings are and stuff as it's coming down. It's not just, oh, here's a target that you're going that's flat. Like the computer knows where buildings are and it will try and avoid buildings that are nearby and stuff. Like if it goes, I've got to land, like it's got a hierarchy of, I can't land properly. What's the next best thing? The water. Can't do that. What's the next best? Oh, this big field over here kind of thing. Like it.
Is that something that it's pre-programmed essentially with safe zones and less safe zones, or is this something where it is actually somehow reading its surroundings?
I don't think it's reading its surroundings. I don't think it's reading its surroundings in terms of trying to find buildings. I think that's sort of like beyond self-driving cars type cleverness. I think it's just got an environment map basically, and it knows
some kind of geofencing essentially.
Yeah, so it knows safe areas stuff, but it does read its environment. Like I think they've used like specific paint and markers and stuff on the landing things that's particularly good for like radio reflectivity, so that it can get a more accurate position of where the landing pad is and stuff. So like it does do some level of reading the environment, but for the most part, it's just like, I know where all the things are pre-programmed. I will do my best to avoid them.
I'm just imagining a big flag in its coding of, please don't hit this. It's like something that surprised me, again, with the stuff you sent me, is just how many of the Block 5 they've got. They've got about 5 boosters, haven't they? Plus a couple of side boosters, which apparently are different.
They are, yeah. They have, because they have got like a bunch of different stuff at the top where the nose cone is for side mounting to like the center core of a Falcon Heavy. Is
this not just some kind of? I assumed it was some kind of modular thing where the ones that were usually a center they could attach by putting different bolts in. It's not that simple, is it? Just add more struts.
I think one of the things that SpaceX learned is that it was harder to, like, I think that was the idea originally, was they'll be largely like each sort of core on a Falcon Heavy would be largely unmodified from a Falcon 9. I think one of the things they learned is that just doesn't work. They need to be quite different.
Fair enough. And now we're talking human rating.
Yeah, finally, for as long as, despite the US government's best efforts, SpaceX is still jumping through all the hoops that they need to get human rated for flying astronauts into space. They have a test flight of the Crew Dragon coming up ostensibly in February. Well, I think it was originally scheduled for the end of January. Now it's in February. It's going to keep getting delayed for as long as the US government is shut down.
That's something else I was going to ask about. We might as well talk about it now.
Mm-hmm.
Presumably, SpaceX are still fully functional during this shutdown, whereas NASA are basically running on bare bones.
So my understanding is that SpaceX are fully operational because they're just a private company. They're just going as they are. They're going to struggle to do any launches that require paperwork from NASA. That's just not going to happen. So all this Crew Dragon stuff, the thing that's holding the Crew Dragon, it's there. It's integrated with the rocket. They've put it up. It's like being vertical on the pad and stuff. They're ready to launch it. They just need NASA to sign off on it and all that kind of stuff, which NASA obviously can't do because they've been shut down for now. Well, apart from like the core stuff required to keep the people on the space station alive. But
that tends to be a pretty good thing to do. Don't let people die.
Yeah.
Although not always a priority. In US government, not NASA. NASA, very good on safety. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, there's problems. Well, I don't know. I have thoughts on that. But like, I think SpaceX could conceivably do other launches still. Like, I think they've got like a one with the like a defense contract, which I think hasn't been shut down in quite the same way. So I think they can still possibly do that launch, and any like fully commercial ones that don't require anything from the government, they could still do. I just don't think they've got anything coming up, as far as I'm aware.
No, it's an interesting thing, again, when you think about the future of spaceflight in North America, the value of being independent from government in certain respects.
Yeah, and SpaceX are working to remove themselves even further from it. So at the moment, all their launch sites, they've got like a bunch of launch sites that are owned by NASA, but like leased to SpaceX. They've got one launch site in Vandenberg, which is the US Air Force owned one, which I think is the one they can still kind of use. I'm not too clear on all this, but they are building like launch facilities in Texas, which are not government in any way. So conceivably, they could just continue to launch as long as they can get like approval from the FAA or whatever. So like, there's always going to be some level of like government involvement. But
does Texas have a coastline?
No.
So they're gonna be launching over land.
Yep.
I thought that was quite heavily frowned upon.
Yep.
Just doing it anyway.
Hasn't stopped Russia or China.
I mean, we've already gone into communism once already.
Not necessarily nations you want to be compared to. Yeah, I don't know the details of how they would launch from Texas, but like Texas,
hopefully upwards.
Hopefully upwards. Texas also has a lot of like unpopulated areas. It's not like they're launching from the middle of a city or something. They're not launching from Houston.
They basically just found a straight line that no one lives under.
Quite possibly, yeah.
That's my derailment over. Continue with crew rating.
Crew rating, yes. So in February, it's an uncrewed launch of the Crew Dragon, and it will go up. It will do some automated flights. It will sort of prove that everything kind of works. TM. In March, although this will get pushed back, they have an in-flight abort. So far, they have done a pad abort test. They have proven that in the event of something going catastrophically wrong with the rocket below it, the Dragon can pull itself away with its Super Draco engines, and that was successful. And they now need to do the same thing, but in flight. So they are going to launch it on a fully operational Block 5 Falcon 9, and then at max Q, which is like the worst possible moment for anything to go wrong, they will trigger an abort, and hopefully, and I imagine it will, but hopefully the Dragon will pull itself away safely.
Do you want to explain max Q for people just quickly?
It's like maximum aerodynamic pressure. It's when it's the most force being exerted on everything about the rocket. Really, it is the worst time for anything to happen. If you want to see a demonstration of like in-flight aborts at max Q, Blue Origin did one with their new Shepherd, I believe, to great success actually. So they're working on like suborbital hops because they're doing more like tourism stuff at the moment. So they've got a little tiny rocket compared to other rockets, the new Shepherd, and they did a couple of years ago now, I think, a max Q abort test, and everything worked fine. Like the capsule pulled away, landed absolutely fine, and despite what they reckoned, the booster landed fine as well. Like everything survived, and it came down and landed itself as well. I'll try and put that link in the show notes. Good video. Hopefully that'll be like what the SpaceX one looks like, just bigger. Oh man, there's so much more to go through. Right, in April, crewed demo flight. They've announced 2 of the crew for, or there will be a crewed demo flight. I don't know who will be on that one, but that will be like a non-operational thing. Just we're going to put people on it, we're going to launch it, we're going to land it, everything's going to be fine. And then sometime in August, they've got like their first operational flight booked to actually take astronauts to the space station. and they have 2 crew announced. I shall click on this link and tell you who they are.
I was going to say, where are they selecting their crew from? Obviously, if they're taking people to the ISS, it's NASA or ESA's or Roscosmos's people.
It's NASA astronauts.
So they're not selecting and training their own astronauts at this stage. Because it does seem a bit weird to me that NASA would just give them highly trained people for a test flight.
These are, I mean, this is contracted by NASA, so it's
okay.
it's all part of the commercial crew program. So like they're like SpaceX have been given money for this purpose. Like there's political points to be gained by not giving all of your launches to Russia. It's Michael Hopkins and Victor Glover. Apologies if I mispronounce any of those. Are the 2 currently announced ones. The mission specialists have yet to be announced.
2 of my favourite astronauts.
Yeah, I don't know who they are. I just thought I'd list their names. Yeah, I think that's about it, really. They've got a few other sort of flights booked as well, but they're sort of like the next key milestones. Like I said, it has been vertical on the pad. SpaceX and Elon Musk have been tweeting pictures of what it all looks like. I still think it looks weird, like a Falcon 9 without a cargo fairing. Just looks odd to me.
I think it just looks a bit weird in general on the top. It's very slightly wider than the booster below it, and that's just a strange look to me.
Yeah. But they've got their crew access walkway thing, which looks pretty cool.
They've put more effort into that than they have the rocket.
It's really funny if you see like the whole thing, because so this is on 39A, which is the launch pad that was used for Saturn V and the shuttle.
Which still makes me sad.
Yeah, and so that's quite a lot of the infrastructure there is quite old. So there's like the sort of support tower from what would be the 60s and 70s, which is just like a huge thing of steel. It looks pretty ugly, and then bolted onto it is this very sleek white modern crew access thing. It's
which
quite
Elon
funny.
has photographed around.
Yes, they have photographed around it, but it is funny if you see pictures of it in full. Looks pretty cool though.
As you were listing the upcoming missions, I couldn't help being reminded of something that I learned the other day about April's resupply mission to the ISS.
Yeah?
Little special cargo on board. I don't know if you know about this.
No. Is it an upcoming thing or a past?
No, it happened back in April.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Where they delivered a not inconsiderable shipment of frozen sperm to the ISS.
Did they?
For experimentation.
Okay.
So it was a combination of human and bull sperm. I'd argue they could have saved little payload weight on the human sperm, but that could get messy. What I'm more interested in, though, and I'm afraid I should have put a link to this really, but you'll have to Google it. They got Matt Groening in from The Simpsons to do a mission patch. I don't know if you can quickly find an image of it for yourself, and I'll make myself head around this. That's one for the show notes. People may enjoy that.
Wow. Wow. That is something. That is Homer Simpson riding a bull sperm, and there's no other way to describe it. I'm amazed that's a patch.
You know, SpaceX got to be quirky, got to be different.
Yeah, well, there we go.
It's of no intellectual value, but that's in the show notes.
Right, I'm going to try and blast through this next bit.
Say, before...
No, we've got Falcon Heavy to cover quickly.
Have we?
Yeah.
Do it.
So I'm going to try and blast through Falcon Heavy quickly. Falcon Heavy is still a rocket that exists. They have 2 launches coming up that are just interesting in general.
Will they involve any sperm?
Not that I'm aware of.
Then why should I care?
Arabsat 6A, sometime in March, brand new rocket. And then I believe they're reusing it all for STP-2, which is a US military launch, which normally goes to ULA. So it's quite cool that SpaceX have got it. Sometime in April, which is using all reused cores or flight-proven cores. So yeah, 2 more flights this year of Falcon Heavy. I'm excited. I hope it all works. I hope we get to see all 3 cores land rather than just 2 of them.
Is that because there was a failure on a previous one, or have they only ever tried to?
Yeah, the demo flight with the Tesla, the center core missed the barge.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
that. Yeah, right. BFR, the most exciting thing. Bit of history, I guess. BFR is Big Falcon rocket, or was Big Falcon rocket. It is SpaceX's Mars system infrastructure. I don't know. It's gone through a bunch of names: BFR, BFS, and ITS. Now it is called Super Heavy and Starship. So Super Heavy is the first stage booster, and then Starship is the upper stage, the spaceship bit of it.
Starship. A little misleading there. Well done, Elon. Overselling your product again.
I think this is a point that Scott Manley's made in one of his videos about various other things like Starliner, which is something that Boeing have made, or there's a fighter plane called something else.
But that just strikes me as American patriotism, putting star in things like that. Whereas this, Starship, you know, a phrase associated with things like the Starship Enterprise.
Yep. Well, you know,
Little cheeky.
They've called it Starship. It's not the. It's a more sensible name than what I was expecting, given the various other names that things that SpaceX have done get.
That's fair.
So yeah, that's that. So SpaceX have been really busy in the last few weeks. They've been building a Starship Hopper. So, or what the community have called a Starship Hopper. So, when SpaceX were developing the landing capability for the Falcon 9, they built a rocket called Grasshopper, which was just built to figure out how to land a rocket. So this thing was a much smaller test article, had one engine in it, and it was designed to sort of like lift off, hover, and land again. And they did progressively bigger jumps with it, basically, before they landed an actual rocket from space. So they've been building Starship Hopper in Texas in a tent.
Because where else do you build important stuff?
For context, SpaceX, a very high-tech company, they've been doing a lot of work on, like before now, we've sort of seen lots of work on carbon fiber tanks, like composite tanks, carbon fiber rockets, going to be super high-tech. They've switched to stainless steel. I think you should now click on that link to see what it looks like.
Yeah, you told me not to look at this beforehand. Well, I can only think of highly inappropriate things to say about this. It's Captain Phasma's dildo. That's what it is. But I'm not sure I can put that in an edit.
If you can, that's got to be the title. Unquestionably.
I mean, they've managed to get an American flag on it, but apart from that, it is basically a tinfoil mess.
It is funny to look at. It feels like Colin Firth has been there recently.
Yes!
A rocket built out of stainless. I mean...
That is your stereotypical 1950s cartoon view of what a rocket looks like.
Yeah, I think the last stainless steel rocket was the Atlas, so that's like pre-Saturn stuff.
So what's it meant to do, apart from go up?
It's all tests that they can launch and land this thing, and it's got the bottom of it. It will have 3 Raptors at the moment. At the moment, they're sort of like Raptor engines in quotes. So at the moment, trying to explain this a little bit. SpaceX have developed an engine, or a couple of engines. The main one they use is called Merlin, which is the one that's on the Falcon 9, both stages. This is their new rocket engine. It's Raptor. It's one of the most advanced rocket engines ever. It's a Methalox. What is it? Full flow Methalox stage combustion engine type thing. I'm sure all those words in an order make sense. So it's a brand new engine that they're doing. So this will be like testing that engine out, like flying it and checking that it can do all the throttling and stuff required to land it and stuff. There's been interesting hypotheses about it using a sort of like a double bell design on the exhaust, which is crazy cool. But it's going to be a hopper, like the Grasshopper type thing. It will do hops to prove that they can land it, basically, and presumably test like other things about building out of stainless steel.
I mean, part of me does want to ask the question, because unfortunately with SpaceX this is a possibility. Could this be some elaborate joke?
Yes, it could. It's been built by I think it's been built by like contractors that normally build water towers, is what I've read. So it could be a joke. I mean, the time frame for the first sort of like hops of this thing, according to Elon, puts April 1st bang in the middle. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, but you know, if it's a joke, they've put a heck of a lot of effort into it.
I was going to say, just looking at the scale of obviously this photo being shown us, looking at the scale of the people against it, it would be a large scale joke.
I mean, this is almost full scale what Starship will be. Like it's shorter, but it's the same diameter. Presumably the sort of like leg/wing things are about the right size and stuff.
I'm just imagining that inside it might be a helter-skelter.
I don't know.
They're building their own theme park. I've been playing a lot of Roller Coaster Tycoon lately.
Yeah.
Can you tell?
But yeah, I mean, they've built this over a matter of weeks. I mean, they were going mad doing this. Like, there were just updates constantly on like people obviously like photographing it. They've got like these ridiculously long lenses photographing it, watching it, and they've just been over the holiday season and all that kind of stuff. They've built a lot of this like shockingly quickly.
So there's every chance that the real team is working somewhere on the real thing, and this is some unnecessary decoy.
Yeah. I mean, if it is, they've committed to it. I'm not sure it is. I mean, Elon's been tweeting about it a lot. He's sort of like before
Yeah,
anything.
because he wouldn't be in on it.
Well, no, he wouldn't. No, he would. But like before any of this was pictured, he was sort of saying, "Oh, we've done some like radical redesigns on Starship." He called it like delightfully unintuitive, which I think building out of stainless steel certainly is.
He went on the Joe Rogan podcast and smoked weed. Where's that in the timeline of this design?
That's true. I don't know. But please don't be like NASA, and then because they've had like a whole investigation launched against them because of that.
Because
he smoked on that podcast.
Really?
Yeah. So like,
why?
I don't want like U.S. politics is the short answer, basically. Yeah.
But he's a private citizen who runs a private company.
Who the
who
U.S.
are a
government?
Contractor.
Yeah. Who the U.S. government are giving a lot of money to launch their
They're not giving it to him. They're giving it to the company.
I know, but the company with the human. Anyway, I agree. It's ridiculous, but there have been like further investigations into SpaceX and like their safety procedures and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of political reason for them not to fly. There's like a lot of money to keep everyone on the ground, which is a shame.
Good job people don't get to see you shooting up before we record, isn't it?
Yeah, can you imagine? Can you imagine what the backlash to that would be?
Any more on the SpaceXs?
I don't know if I sort of want to quickly sort of like talk about the fact that it's made out of stainless and not carbon fibre, and the potential dual bell design, because I think they're quite interesting.
Do it.
So, carbon fibre, like all other forms of carbon, burns quite well, and so re-entry is a problem. So they want this to be like a highly reusable thing, like more than Block 5 and all that kind of stuff. And so in order to stop it from catching fire when coming back, or even like the aerobraking on Mars and stuff, like they'd need to put a heat shield on it, and it would have to be a whole heat shield, like much like the shuttle along the whole sort of like base of the thing. SpaceX would probably use their Pica X sort of like heat shield technology, which is an ablative heat shield, which would mean it would need to be inspected and sort of like redone regularly. It would not be nearly as delicate as the ones on the shuttle because they were ceramic tiles, so it would be less,
which caused some very well documented and tragic issues.
Yeah, ceramic tiles were a bad plan for lots and lots and lots of reasons. So yeah, this would not be that, but it would still require maintenance and stuff. But the thing about heat shield is that it would have to, over quite a short sort of like distance, go from ridiculously hot where it's hitting the atmosphere to quite cold. Like it would not be able to heat up the carbon fibre very much. It would have to absorb and sort of like re-radiate as much of that heat as possible, which is quite a hard thing to do. Whereas if you make it out of stainless, you have a bunch of advantages. You can safely, as long as there's like insulation around where the humans are, you can safely just absorb that heat.
It's essentially a heat sink.
Yeah, and you can absorb it and you can re-radiate it all over the place. But you can also use it to keep your tanks pressurized. So there's a bunch of ways of like keeping the fuel tanks pressurized. Most rockets use like a separate supply of helium. The idea with this is that there won't be any helium involved. It will be auto like genously or something. I don't know how you pronounce this word, but it will basically pressurize itself with just the evaporation of the fuel inside there, and obviously heating up the skin of the rocket will help with that. So that will help keep the tanks pressurized and all that kind of stuff. And they can just sink a whole bunch of energy into there. Like they can do regenerative cooling across the surface of the rocket if they wanted to, much like how a lot of engine bells are kept cool. They're kept cool by running the fuel along the engine bell to take that heat away. So that's one cool thing. The other thing that I didn't really know about re-entry mechanics that I learned watching Scott Manley videos is that a lot of the heat comes from like direct radiation from like the hot air in front of it. It's not like thermally conducted in through contact. That's some of it, but most of it comes from the fact that it's like direct infrared going on there. And if you have like a black heat shield that absorbs quite a lot of heat, it re-radiates it very well as well, but it does absorb a lot of that heat. Whereas by having it made out of very reflective silver material, you can actually reflect a lot of that away and not even absorb a lot of it. So it's a surprise. Yeah, so it's interesting. It'd be interesting to see if that works.
So are we anticipating that this shiny stainless steel will be the outer layer? Because that's what I sort of took from the flag being painted on it. That's sort of what made me think, oh, this isn't going to be skinned in something else.
Yeah, my understanding is that is the surface of the rocket. It will just be a very shiny rocket. At the very least, the upper stage. We don't know about the super heavy at the moment. Opinions are split on the subreddit about whether or not that'll be made out of stainless as well. It's got less reason to be made out of stainless, so it might still be a carbon fiber thing, or at the very least, like the aluminium that they're used to using. But we'll see.
I mean, aesthetically, you hope not.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it all being made out of stainless. It does look a bit weird.
It looks cheap.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is that the test article they've got at the moment is quite sort of ripply. You know, it's not perfectly smooth. Whereas I would hope that when they get to doing proper production of this, they will actually smooth it all out. I mean, they'd want to, because obviously that would not be good for the aerodynamic forces on liftoff.
The one thing that would be good if it does end up being made out of steel is that you can analyse the welds.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure will be of the highest quality.
That's another thing about it is that they're building this to go to Mars. And what do you not want on Mars? Super high-tech materials that you can't repair. So it's sort of like, you know, this might be to help it be, you know, repairable on Mars and stuff, which, you know, is an interesting idea.
That's very reasonable.
Yeah. Because this has just been built by, this so far has been built by a bunch of people that normally build water towers.
So could that be an intentional choice as well, then? Can
Maybe.
we get non-rocket engineers to make this rocket?
Yeah, maybe.
I still think it's ridiculous. But at least there's potentially some semblance of sense to it.
Yeah. The other cool thing is this is much more hypothetical. So based on like zooming in on these pictures and looking at the specific shape of the engine bells at the bottom, they appear to have a bit of a kink in them. So normally they're like they form a perfectly smooth curve, whereas these ones appear to have one curve and then a kink that goes to a slightly wider curve after that. And this is another thing that I learned watching Scott Manley, who you should definitely subscribe to on YouTube. This could let you get different specific impulses at different levels of the atmosphere. So when you're designing an engine bell, you want to get the pressure of the exhaust as close to the pressure of the environment outside as possible. So if you're launching and your exhaust is coming out at a lower pressure than the air around you, it will be underexpanded and create a lot of instability in the flow as the exhaust leaves the bell, and then that instability can have like basically ripple up and then make the combustion unstable and cause a lot of damage to everything. You don't want that. And if it's overexpanded, I think you get similar things, and it's just horrifically inefficient. So you shouldn't do overexpanded stuff. If you've ever seen, like, most rockets launch slightly underexpanded at launch, as in, like, so that you can sort of see that the all the exhaust sort of forms into a nice sort of like cone, comes to a nice point and stuff for a lot of launches. It's especially obvious on the shuttle. If you look at like the space shuttle main engines, like they're overexpanded at launch, and then as it climbs through, and the reason you do that is that you want like the most efficient thing to be not right at sea level. You want it to be a few kilometers up at the very least. But this is an interesting idea where there's sort of like two levels of this, so that when you do the initial launch right at sea level, there's enough pressure that the flow doesn't like join to the bell where after the kink. The engine bell, as far as the flow of the exhaust is concerned, ends at that kink. And as you get higher up, it will suddenly go, and it will suddenly, like, the pressure will change, and then it will suddenly stick to the outer one, and it will change its expansion ratio and be more efficient, which makes sense for something that's designed to land in various atmospheres and operate both in a vacuum and at sea level.
I was going to say, that's one of the things that we're less used to seeing be an issue, because most things aren't single stage. What is this intended to sort of... what capability is this intended to have as a single stage?
As a single stage, on its own, SpaceX have marketed it as Earth-to-Earth transport, like a suborbital hop from anywhere to anywhere in 45 minutes or whatever it is, which is an interesting idea. And on its own, I think it will be able to lift off from Mars and come back. I think the only time it needs the super heavy booster thing is to get off of Earth in the first place for like an actual orbital flight. But in the long run, my understanding is that SpaceX want to use this for everything. This is meant to supersede Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy.
That's quite a big jump up in capability that they're planning then.
Yeah, and the idea is that, like, so I think a lot of the reason that we have like different rockets for different scales of payload is because rockets are really, really expensive to launch. And so you want to build the smallest rocket that can do what you want, basically. But if SpaceX can get this as reusable as they want it to be, then it's like, well, we can just make it up in volume. They can do things like, launch a whole bunch of satellites in one go, or, and because they can just reuse it, they can bring their cost of launch way down.
You've mentioned Scott Manley.
Yep.
Probably worth, unless you have anything more to do on SpaceX.
Oh, I think I'm done.
And I think it's worth ending on a quick note of just how good Scott Manley is as an explainer of very complex ideas.
Yes, if you want what you just heard, but better and shorter, then go subscribe to Scott Manley.
And Scottisher.
And Scottisher. You can find the show notes for this episode at spinnerproof.com/episode/44. And there you can find links to all the things we've been talking about today. You can also find a link to our Twitter at Spinnerproof, where you can tweet to us your favourite material for building rockets. Oh my God, I think I've just talked for about 40 minutes straight. I have no idea.
It'd be great if you knew that much about robots.
Yeah.